Okay, we're continuing with the typesetting scenario, and we were talking about the baseline of letters before, noting that the serifs should all kind of fall in the same line. As a general rule, you'll want to break it sometimes, I'm sure, but just if you can follow that horizontal baseline, in this case, running across into these letters. So we talked about color last week, and this is obviously not the proportions of the poster that I was designing. We are working in a slide arrangement, but I'm just going to move them over a little bit to get a sense of continuity. So one thing I thought that was going to be kind of important was that we also kind of added a little life to it. I knew my output was going to be in color, so I had some liberty to use color to my advantage. So MJC's colors are blue, and while we may not follow the reflex blue, which is that bright, it's more, this is MJC's blue, that's a little bit more bright than it is, but that's the color. That tends to get kind of tacky after a while, after you see it all the time. So I want to give just a little more subtle of a color. And then that whole idea of perfection. What do we think of when we think of perfection? Do we think of like a goody two shoes? What kind of associations come to mind? And what came to my mind right away was the idea of a gold star. And so I thought, let's go with a sort of gold color. And I don't see it available to me, so I'm going to click on more colors, bring up the color wheel, which defaults to black. By moving the little arrow up to white, the selector, I have more colors available to me. I'm going to add a little gray to neutralize it a little bit and see if I can get some nice nice colors. I'm looking for real nice saturation, warmth, enough so that it pops out on the poster. And I'm going to say okay. And there's my color. Now that blue doesn't show up so well. So I'm going to take it up a little darker, see if that works. Now it looks a little black now. So this is where it just becomes the act of fiddling a little bit. That wasn't the blue that I wanted, and I didn't have all my types selected. So by hitting Control A or Command A on the Mac, I'm going to move it over and do that. Now this isn't as perfect as my other poster was, but here we have it. So the other thing that I wanted to do was add some element of some interest to the poster to contextualize it. And since we're talking about perfection, I will spare you guys the time, but I did go to the internet and find some colors and, some stars. And I chose a large size so that I could scale it up. And I wasn't quite sure of what to do. I thought, well, maybe I should drop some stars over the letters. But that might be kind of distracting. That might overemphasize the perfection. But if we could just suggest what that means to most people, what could we do? And so I eventually settled on this guy here. And I'm going to go visit that. And I think I might have downloaded it. Let's see. Where is it? Okay, I'm going to click on that. Oh no, silly interwebs. Escape. All right, where it is. Okay, that's the one I want. Let's see if it brings it up. And then let's see if it'll let me copy that image. Now, we really should be a lot more thorough about this. When you're working for big design firms, they're not going to let you play like we're playing right now. But for the sake of example and haste, I'm going to go ahead and grab this image. And I copied it to the clipboard, and I'm going to click paste. And see how nice and large that is in the background. And I'm going to arrange and send it to the back, send it behind the text that we have set. And you'll see it in context. I might even tile it. You'll get the idea. And then I'm going to double click on that. And let's see, let's bring up the transparency. I'm going to change the transparency to set it in the background. And what I actually did, and I'm going to copy it. Copy and paste with the settings, and I'll rotate it so that it's not the same configuration of stars to add some sense of randomness to it. And again, I have to send that to the back. Design is all about layers. And then here, what I did is I added a drop shadow, and let's see if it made it easy for me. I'm going to just double click on that. And okay, effects. So we'll just go right into shadow and we'll say that. That's a little much for that. It makes it a little bit harder to read. And I'm going to do an effect of a shadow. Now, I know, ladies and gentlemen, that if I spent more time doing this, I could come up with something a lot more elaborate. But in essence, this is the process that I went about to make my poster at the request of these leaders who needed something fast, and I needed to move on in my non-design work. And so let's bring up what we have. This is what we came down with. Now note, because of the proportions, I easily scaled it up so that you could see what it would look like. But that is what the poster is going to look like. And it suggests the idea of perfection, in my opinion, without actually implying that it must be perfect. But that whole idea of talking about perfection, the curved lines of the Cooper font, I think make it very friendly and a little informal, while adhering to the classic serif forms that originate from the antiquity in terms of Rome and Greece and whatnot, rather than these more modern fonts. So I hope you found this kind of interesting, and it just gives you permission to think about using type in powerful ways and thinking about what a typeface might suggest to your audience. You can do a lot of things in Microsoft PowerPoint that you can do in the other tools. You'll just want to be aware that you're going to have, if those of you that are accustomed to the other tools, you're going to have some limitations in this tool as to how good it might look or not. But for a presentation, remember that the viewer generally doesn't walk with, it gets the job done. Okay? Hope this was helpful.